Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on bjpen.com. I'm your host, Cole Shaw. Episode 126. We got a good line pad of PFL 5, UFC Vegas 76, and CFFC this weekend. First up, we're going to join by Aspen Ladd to preview her PFL fight against Karolina Sobek. Aspen knows she not only needs to win, she needs to finish after losing to Olena Kolsonic in the first regular season fight. So she knows points are needed in this one. Very confident though that she can get the job done. She thinks she needs to be just more aggressive, and she has a plan of how to be more aggressive and really get firing in that first round to get a finish and hopefully book herself a playoff spot. We're then going to be joined by Modestas Bukauskas to preview his fight on Saturday against Zach Puega. This is a really intriguing fight. Modestas came off that big upset win over Tyson Pedro in his return fight to UFC. He got signed for that one, took it on short notice, ended up beating Pedro. So a really good performance. And he knows if he beats Zach, he can start getting close to those rankings. He said he's not really in a rush this time. Thinks that's why he kind of got cut that first time, but he's confident he'll do everything right to beat Zach. We're then going to be joined by UFC veteran Kyle Daukaus to preview his CFFC return fight against Robert Gidron on Friday night. Kyle lost 2 straight fights to Eric Anderson Romdelidze, fought out his deal. He said the UFC actually offered him a new deal, but he had to take the Pedro fight, funny enough, on short notice, and he didn't really want to fly to Australia on two and a half week notice, fight at 205 against a tough guy in Pedro. So he decided to go back to the regional scene. He thinks a couple, maybe a win or two in CFFC, especially dominant wins, he can get signed to a Bellator, PFL, or back to the UFC. But he says there's no ill will towards the UFC. He knows it's just business, and he knows he needs to start winning again if he's going to get back to these big promotions. We're then going to be joined by Miles Johns to preview his fight against Raoni Barcelos. This is a very fun fight. Raoni obviously was a dark horse for many guys at bantamweight, but coming off that loss to Umar Nurmagomedov when he got knocked out. Miles Johns, meanwhile, coming off that very close win against Vince Morales, where kind of everything went bad for him in that one. So Miles changed camps from Fortis to Glory MMA on Friday night. The whole James Krause thing went down. The Vegas commission said James can't be your head coach. We had to end up just giving his brothers in his corner, who one brother does fight, one was just kind of there. So he says his whole corner was messed up. He wasn't really focused on the fight because everything going on. He thought like he made this terrible life choice of moving to Kansas City, and then everything, his gym shuts down. Like James can't coach him. So obviously a very interesting fight. And then we close things out talking to Nikolas Motta to preview his fight against Manuel Torres. Nikolas is back in action, coming off that very impressive win last time out against Cameron Van Camp, where he knocked him out. He was supposed to fight Ignacio Bahamondes at UFC 287. He was very disappointed. He had to pull out that one. He's really looking forward to fighting in front of fans. But with Manuel, Manuel hasn't fought since May of 2022 when he knocked out Frank Camacho. He obviously knows Manuel would like to stand and bang. So he's really looking forward to this one. I think this one's just going to basically whoever lands first is going to win this fight. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're joined by Aspen Ladd, who's back in action on June 16th. Aspen, how's it going?
Going great. Just normal day working, and yeah.
Obviously, second fight of the regular season for you. Like a quick turnaround, which is the case in PFL. Like, how kind of happy are you with that? Like, where you already have your fight scheduled and like you kind of already know when you're gonna be fighting again.
Oh, I love it. Like, it's the coolest experience I've had in my pro career. Actually knowing that I have another one already, like, here. Like, it's awesome.
Your last fight, what do you take away from that? Like a pretty close fight. Some people thought you won. Like, what do you take away from it?
Start faster. That's the main takeaway from that. I need to start a little bit faster, and yeah.
And fighting at 45 in PFL too, like how much better do you feel at 45? Just because I know you had those cuts down to 35, like you had success there, but it just kind of seems like you are a better fighter at 45.
Well, the entire thing about 35 was dying to make it, then trying to recover enough to fight. I don't have to do that anymore. So yes, there's a weight cut, but it's not. It's like a normal weight cut. It's not an extreme. I'm dying. So I'm not having to take the time to just recover to fight. I actually get to be a healthy athlete going out there.
What is like, or how different is training camp for like the PFL compared to the UFC run where like it is back-to-back fights? Like you get done with one, you're pretty much right back into another fight camp.
Yeah. Honestly, it's not too much different so far for me because I didn't get injured. There's no issues there. And I'm in the gym regardless. I don't ever really take that much time off. So it doesn't feel that different. I mean, obviously this is my first time doing a season format, but it's normal, just kind of more exciting because I already obviously have one booked.
With Carolina, like how familiar were you with her?
I'm not familiar at all, except for the night, because she fought on the same night, and I saw some of it. And I've done some of these interviews now. Some people's like, "Oh, she's a striker, she's a grappler." It's like, oh, I guess she does everything, but I'm not all that familiar, and so I didn't find out who it was until I think like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So you're basically preparing for a date, and then you get the opponent. Like you know the potentials, but you don't know exactly who until you're fairly close to the fight.
How hard does that make it to prepare, or is it always just about you anyways, not really too much about the opponent?
It's more focusing on what you do well and fixing past mistakes than it is about the particular opponent. Like you need to know their tendencies, like if they do this thing all the time, or if they're switchy, or if they're whichever stance they prefer. But you don't. You try not to focus too much on the opponent, regardless. It's more perfecting what you do well.
And then you said at the beginning, you just have to start fast. Like, how do you kind of get ready to start fast? Like, is it pushing like a bit harder warm up before you go out there? Like, what kind of is it to get you to be able to start fast?
We've been working on that since I got back. Basically, it's my cardio is good. It's always I work very hard at that, and that's never an issue. The problem is the longer the fight is, the better I do.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been treating this more or less like a 5-minute fight. That's all the time you get. You got to go out and get your job done. Thank you.
All right. Can I take a picture with you before you
Absolutely.
Go? Okay.
Cool. Sorry.
Yeah, all good. And I know training, like with these back-to-back fight camps, like I know you always like getting out on hikes and stuff. Are you still able to kind of do all that downtime, even though it's like two intense fight camps, like back-to-back like that?
I still get out there every day. We either run or we hike. I'm a little bit too OCD not to, and that's like a positive addiction for me.
How much do you think that helps your cardio? Like it's just something you enjoy doing, but like going on those hikes and runs probably helps be able to make you be able to push this pace.
I think it's definitely beneficial for like endurance, and it always has been. There's never been a time in my life I haven't done that, literally. So it's so second nature at this point.
And then with Carolina, like I know with the point system, like I think a decision win might get you in. Like you might need to finish. Like how much pressure does that add to you? Where like you kind of have to figure out how many points you kind of need.
Uh, Going into the second round and needing points, you want to get a first round finish. So that is the focus.
Does that change the way you have to like get ready for this fight? Like like in a UFC fight, like it's not just all about like getting a first round finish, but like this one, like you kind of need to finish. Does that change the way you're gonna have to fight this one?
It can change the approach, that's for sure, because it's so much is riding on getting enough points to continue. So it's the first time I've experienced that, where it's not just the win that matters, it's the points that matter. So it's I'm learning as I go as far as that goes.
Do you enjoy that? Like I've talked to some PFL fighters. Some are like think it's a good idea. Some are like still like I'd rather it is just more about focusing on winning. But like, do you like the point system?
I'm still getting used to it. This is only my second fight with it. Some of the things, like I'm still trying to figure out how they work, or they've changed certain rules since last season to this season. So at this point, it's just like, okay, try to get as many as possible, and hopefully we go forward.
And then with the tournament too, like not being able to throw elbows, like does that change the way you kind of like think about the ground and pound and like in the clinch?
That was awful. Okay, so that's the only thing that I don't like, because when you've been doing that for like the last 8 years, and it makes the fight so much easier to finish, especially when like people grab your gloves and stuff and you're on the ground, you turn them over and you hit them, or if you're in the clinch situation, you hit them. But on my first fight last year with the PFL, I found that out the night before. So literally the whole time you're in your head, don't elbow, don't elbow, don't elbow. There's even my coach once or twice yelling, don't elbow. So training yourself not to when you've been doing something for like the last 8 or 9 years is very hard. And yes, it would be my preference to be able to throw them, but is what it is.
Does that like, and especially just because you've been doing it for years, like just it's kind of like mentally a thing you're just kind of used to, especially if you just kind of go on autopilot. It's like, how hard was that to like kind of turn off and like realize like, oh, I can't actually elbow in this position?
Incredibly hard, because like so much of what we do, it's just training coming out. You're not necessarily thinking about it. It's what you've done hundreds and hundreds of times. So you have to actively think about not doing it. So that part is hard.
With this one, like we kind of talk about how you kind of need to finish. Like, how do you see it playing out?
You are gonna have to wait and see. But the intent is in the first round.
And then you say you do get the finish, you advance to the playoffs. Like, then the points doesn't matter. Like, does that then just have to like change the fight style completely again once you get to the playoffs, or it's then just back to all about winning?
It completely depends on which opponent you get lined up with next. Because there's a few chicks that hit really hard in this tournament, and there's several that not necessarily. So it determines how wild you can go out and be immediately versus how careful. But right now, this is the fight that matters and the one I'm focused on. So we'll go from there.
And just final thing, like you signed with PFL, and like kind of since then they've obviously signed Ngannou, they've signed like a lot of these big names. Like, what's it like for you to kind of be a part of this organization that's seemingly getting bigger and bigger every day?
It's great to see, and it's like because they're still new, and everybody compares them obviously, and I get this a ton. Like UFC versus PFL. It's like PFL hasn't been around that long. UFC's been around for 30 years, and they've become the standard because they're the time and what they put in. But PFL is new, and look what they've already done and the way they're treating their fighters currently. So thank you guys. But it's a very cool thing to be a part of and to see playing out. Sorry, we'll do it Tuesday or whatever day. Okay. Sorry, I was sparring right before this. I'm coming back. Okay, I'm here.
Okay, that was literally the final question I had, so I appreciate the time, Aspen.
Cool. Yeah, no, we were right in the ring, and I looked up and was like, "Oh shit, I have something at 12:45. I had to get out." Okay.
All good. Well, thank you so much for the time, Aspen. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one. All right, we're joined by UFC light heavyweight Modestas Bukauskas, who's back in action on June 17th. Modestas, how's it going, man?
Going very well, thank you. Thank you once again for having me on, my brother.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking to you. I am surprised I'm talking to you now because I thought it might have been like June or July we'd be talking for the London card. Like, how disappointed is it? Or like, maybe not disappointed, but like, are you surprised that you aren't on that London card?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty surprised that I'm not. Actually, leading up to this fight, so there was a couple of names being thrown about, and then Zach actually messaged me on Twitter and said, "Yo, are you keen to throw down in June?" And I said, "Well, what about coming to London in July?" And I would have thought I would have earned it. Going to another man's home country and beating him on 2 weeks' notice. Against a very tough opponent in Tyson Pedro. So I thought I would have earned it. But it seems as though, obviously, I guess it just for them it made sense, to have it done for Zach's favor. But once again, I do embrace that challenge. I embrace the fact that I have to go overseas again, and like I say, I've still got to build my way up. I've got to earn my wins, earn my respect, move up the ranks, and do my thing. And then hopefully one day I will be fighting in London in front of a Hotam crowd. But for now, I am happy going into enemy territory and taking people out in their home countries.
And with Zach, how familiar were you with him when he messaged you then?
Very, very actually. He was like I said, he was one of the names that came up with me and my management in terms of, who we could potentially fight next. He'd been on the Cage Warriors scene. I remember as I was recovering from injury, I thought that would be a potential opponent, in my Cage Warriors reign. So, yeah, man. And obviously I've seen him on The Ultimate Fighter. I saw his last fight against Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright also being like a friend of mine. I trained with him in Albuquerque a couple of years back. So, yeah, man, he's definitely been on my radar. So obviously I have been watching him.
What have you made of his run? Like, obviously looked pretty good on The Ultimate Fighter. Like, I thought he was going to beat Usman, and then he just kind of got caught. And now he's obviously fighting at his rightful weight class at 205.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's good. He's got good skill sets. He's done very well to get to the skill set that he is in realistically such a short space of time. Obviously having done other sports and stuff like this. But yeah, I don't feel like any one of his skill sets are very prominent or very outshining. So this is where I feel I will have the upper edge.
I know like 4 months about the usual time frame. So like, was this about the right time frame you were thinking then after that last one?
Um, Bro, like obviously the first thing was I had no injuries. I was like, I want to fight on the initial London
Yeah.
card, and then obviously that didn't happen, and yeah, I was kind of just waiting for the next opportunity. I kind of, do you know what? It's mad how the universe works because in a way, I was kind of like July's a bit far. I would like to fight earlier, you know. So the fact that it's actually come around a bit earlier and it's happening in June, you know, I guess that is a little bit towards my favor as well because I did want to fight earlier. However, I did want to fight in front of a hometown crowd.
Mhm.
But you know, like I say, that thing will happen in the future. That will happen later for sure.
I guess maybe a small bright side is you can just be at the event drinking beer and enjoying it, not have to worry about a weight cut or anything for that
Yeah.
week.
Oh yeah, 100%. Obviously, it'll be another amazing show. Obviously, I've got to go and get the job done in June first. That's going to be the main priority. And then yeah, obviously, yeah, it'll be nice again just to kind of chill out, be in the arena and stuff like this. And like I say, I want to build up the notoriety from this fight that I have in Vegas. Go and get a big statement, and then yeah, like I say, just enjoy the whole event a little bit more.
With Zach, like he is obviously a wrestler, likes to clinch. Like, how do you think you match up against him?
I mean, look, he obviously he does like the clinch. I've seen him wrestle a little bit. He does like the occasional high kick. You know, he does some very good things. Got a very low stance. You know, there's things that he does well, but everything that he does well, I do better, and I know that for a fact. I know I'm better than this man. He does pose many threats, but so do I. People still don't know everything that I can do, and it's been the constant theme. But slowly but surely, people are starting to see what I'm capable of, and I'm looking forward to show even more so that when I go out into the cage on June 17th.
And then fighting back at the Apex. Obviously, last time you were there was that Khalil fight. Like, was there any hesitancy to go back there, just kind of after everything that happened there?
Hell no, I'm going out here for war, brother. I'm going out here for war, mate. Like this is time to rewrite history. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the last two times I was there, oh, they had losses. Well, now it's time to change the script. It's time to change the script, and we're going to bring back a win. We're going to bring back a victory. It's going to be even more sweet when we go back there again. We're again not being given our hometown fight, and we have to go overseas. So we're going to go out overseas and beat another man in his home country. That is the vibe. That is the intensity that I'm going with. I'm looking forward to it, bro. Like I say, the Apex now is going to be my home to victory, and that's the way I see it.
Do you think anything's like changed mentally with you in this like second stint? Like even when I talked to you before the Pedro fight, like it seemed like you're a bit more fired up and like did something kind of change over that time off and the injuries and this return?
Well, I became a bit more dark, bro. I became a bit more red lightsaber. You know, I've used this analogy many times now. That my good friend Will Curry taught me, which is about the blue lightsaber and the red lightsaber. And I was a bit too blue, you know. I was going way too far on that side. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't want to go too far on the red side either, but you want to be somewhere in the fine line in between. And you got to just know when to switch it on. And I feel like the experiences and the situations I had with that injury, with getting cut, with people kind of fucking me over and people kind of not believing in me afterwards, like it sends you to a very, very deep dark place that a lot of people find hard to get out of. You really do, I believe, have to have an elite mindset, and you have to have, not only that, you've got to have really good people around you in order to help pull you out of those deep dark places. But I think that changed me to show me what the real world's all about. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of harsh things in this world. Of course, there are many good things that this world provides, and it is beautiful. And especially when you get the wins and everything that are good, like it is beautiful. But it definitely shaped my mind for the better. It shaped my mind more for war as opposed to competition. So this is where I feel like I've changed.
And then with Zach, like his only loss has been knockouts. Like, how do you kind of see it playing out? Because you obviously have a ton of power. You have the cardio to go 15 minutes. Like, how do you kind of see this one playing out?
I'm going for the finish, as per usual. I'm always going for the finish. I feel like I can go and grapple and take him down and finish him on the floor. as do I also think that I can take him stand-up wise, and I've got many tools in the book to be able to overcome anything that he has got to throw at me. I do feel I'll finish him. Whether it be on the ground or in stand-up, we'll see how the fight plays out. But I will 100% go and finish him on June 17th.
Is there a bit of a chip on your shoulder this time around where like you already kind of felt like what getting cut from the UFC is like, and now it's just kind of, now that you made it back, like a lot of guys don't make it back. Like, is there something to prove that like they made a mistake cutting you in the first place?
I don't necessarily think I look at it as, oh, I'm trying to show there was a mistake, because I hadn't proved myself. You know, I understand that. I accept that. That is something that I've sort of come to terms with. I get it. You know, guys lose 3 in a row, you know, it's usually not a good story for them. So for me, it's just more about, it's less about a chip on the shoulder for, oh, that they cut me a bit too early. It's more of a chip on the shoulder for not really fighting to my full potential, which is what you want to do in this lifetime, which is what you want to do in your career as a whole. You know, I already understand that I've done an amazing thing to get cut from the UFC and come back within 16 months. That's quite unheard of, but I do feel like this was fate. This was how it was supposed to happen. This was how I was supposed to learn the lessons and the appropriate things in order to become the best version of myself and to fight to my full potential. I had, you know, referees after fights coming up to me saying, Modestas, this is the best I've ever seen you. And that's very heartwarming to me, because that is all I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was be able to show the best of myself. And I feel like I'm in that place to be able to do so. And I embrace it. I embrace the pressure. I embrace the fear. I embrace the anxiety. I embrace everything that comes with it. And that is why I will show my full potential when it comes to this fight and to every fight from forward from that.
And do you kind of think now that you're really just like coming in your own and the knees like kind of behind you? Because I remember when we talked after the Cage Warriors fight, like that first one, like it was like a bit rusty, I think you said, and like just kind of dealing with coming back from that knee. Like, do you think now that like that's fully behind you, it's not even like a worry in your head of, oh, how am I going to react to taking this kick or whatnot?
Oh, 100%. I mean, mate, obviously I've been kicked many times in training, so I know that I can definitely take a good knock. And obviously I was kicked quite a couple of times against Pedro as well. So I know my legs can withstand a hell of a lot. I think obviously it was more ring rust when I came back after injury, just kind of like, oh, I need to get back into the mode of being in a fight. You know what I mean? Being in a fight under the bright lights and in front of a crowd and all these kind of things. So yeah, man, I feel like I've definitely started finding myself as an athlete, especially in the UFC. You know, having that fight against Pedro was very good for me in terms of like I was able to, I felt the most there, like I felt the most present that I've ever felt, and it was a nice feeling because it means you can let go, you can show out more, and yeah, like I said, I'm just looking forward to doing that again. Yeah, there will be no ring rust. It will just be me performing to the highest level possible that I'm capable of.
You go out there and finish Zach. Like, where do you think that puts you in division? Because you've been a guy ranked, like you've been fighting these ranked guys. Like, where do you think a win puts you?
To be honest, bro, I'm taking my time. I mean, I don't really, as much as I would like to, you know, be fighting top 15. I do think I can beat any one of those top 15. As you have to going into this game, you got to see yourself as the king. You know, if you're not seeing yourself as the king, then what the hell are you doing here? There's a lot of new talent. There's a lot of guys that have just been signed off of contender series and stuff like this. So, you know, there's talent being thrown into the mix. So there's a lot of names to go through, you know. So for me, it's just, you know, it's all about picking them off one by one and getting yourself on the way to the gold. And, you know, once it gets to, you know, next contract negotiations and this and that, that's when you want to, you know, start really up in the competition. You've got to take your time. You know, I think as well in my Cage Warriors run, I took my time. You know, I remember I had 2 fights. Then they gave me a 1-fight release. I went and won a British title again against slowly better opposition. And then I said, yeah, listen, we need someone good now. And that's when I got Marcin Wojciech for in Cage Warriors, and then Hamlet. So it's about that progression. You know, you can't rush these things, and it's not necessarily to do with skill set. It's not necessarily to do with what you're capable of in the cage. It's how you mentally approach these things, and how you're able to handle the pressure and these certain things, which you do need to take your time to build your way up the ranks. Like, you have to really look at guys like Ian Gary. He's done things the right way. Now he's ranked. He just fought a ranked opponent, got himself into the rankings, doing it the right way, step by step, fight by fight, working his way up. And that's how it should be done. That's the fight business for you. And like I say, I'm just really excited to put on amazing performances for the fans, put amazing performances for myself and my team, and go out there and bring back those memories. Do you know what I mean? Like, put on the highlight reel. That's what we're here for. We're gladiators. We're coming out there onto the battlefield. You know what I mean? So we're there to entertain. So that's what I'm here to do, bro. Every fight, entertain.
Just two more things is, like, what is the goal then for you this year? Like, already your second fight in middle of June kind of set you up to have a pretty active year.
Yeah. So I reckon I'll probably have one more fight this year. Probably close towards the end of the year. Just we're looking at it realistically, and then begin next year. I think I would have. So I've had one fight, this one, that one. So beginning of next year would probably be the last fight on my contract, and then see what the negotiations look like, renegotiating, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, I'm kind of I'm looking at these next 4 fights to really impress, to really show myself, do things the right way, and then move forward. But yeah, I mean, look, the main thing is 2 more wins this year, June 17th, and 1 more at the end of the year. That is the main thing. 2 big wins, and then start the next year off right, and then work my way towards the top 15 for next year. Yeah, next year's we're looking to get into the top 15 and work our way towards that championship belt.
Do you think there is a scenario where, like, say you finish Zach early, like, maybe you can make a quick turnaround getting that London card, or do you think, like, it's pretty much ruled out?
Who knows, bro? Who knows? I mean, I've had many times thinking that scenario in my head, like, what about this? What about that? And I think you just got to take things as they come. I called my shot when when I finished the Tyson Pedro fight. I said, I wanted to get Paul Craig. Obviously, he's now moving down to middleweight. If there's space on, it seems like the card's filling up pretty quickly. But hey, if there's space, or if there's a dropout or whatever, and I'm healthy and everything's good to go, then, like I say, why not? It'll be amazing to fight in front of my hometown, but I also got to remember I can't rush either. So, but look, bro, if everything makes sense and all the stars align, then 100% that will happen.
And just final thing, like, is that part of the goal for next year, is like telling the UFC, like, hey, I gotta be on at least one of the 2 London cards they do?
100%, bro. I think I would have definitely. This year is about me earning my right to be on a London card, because this is part of the game. This is part of this is like the hurt business, but also the entertainment business. It's, are you going to be entertaining enough to get yourself noticed by people? And I really do think my reach would go out much further if I was to fight in London, because you go out there, you get a big victory, and you get me on the mic, bro. You know what I mean? Like, people start hearing that I've got the British accent and everything. I think it'll start to resonate with people a lot more. I still don't think people know about me too much, but it's okay, because they'll start knowing about me. Once I go out there and perform, all of that will follow suit. All I got to do is go and perform. That is my job, and that's what I'm going to go and do.
Well, Modestas, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
My man, thank you so much, brother. Have a lovely evening.
All right, we're joined by CFFC middleweight Kyle Daukaus, who's back in action on June 16th. Kyle, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I talked to your brother like last week, and he kind of mentioned there was some other options, like possibly staying in the UFC, possibly going elsewhere. Like, what kind of drew you to go back to CFFC then, if some of these like bigger promotions seem to be a bit interested?
CFFC is very local to me. I was the middleweight champ for them prior to being signed in the UFC, so that's always kind of been something that's been local and been available. There are other organizations that are like regional scene organizations that are around, but they're not like as high up, I would say, as CFFC. So I didn't want to really fight for anybody that's kind of not really like getting any like anything outside, like on TV and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
like CFFC is on Fight Pass. A lot of other organizations aren't. There was potential of me staying with the UFC. I don't know if you had heard in my prior interview, but I was offered to fight Tyson Pedro.
Mhm.
That kind of fell through. All that kind of went down and whatnot. But that was my choice alone to not take that fight and kind of move on from the UFC as of right now. But yeah, we spoke to Bellator, spoke to PFL. Obviously, those things didn't happen as of yet, but hopefully that's something that'll, that will happen eventually, probably by the end of the year.
Yeah, because your brother actually told me that you got offered the Pedro fight. And I was pretty surprised because like light heavyweight out in Australia, like on a couple weeks' notice, didn't seem like made a whole lot of sense. Was that? And then after you turn that down, the UFC basically just say like, all right, then you're done here then?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that going into the Anders fight that it was my last fight on my contract. We had contacted Mick Maynard about if he wanted to re-sign me or not prior to that fight, and he said no, we'll fight it out and see where we go from there. And I said okay. So I had that mindset in the back of my head that if I did lose that fight, I was potentially out. They came back with that offer, and I had a lot of personal things going on in my life with my wife and I was trying to start a family and stuff. So I really couldn't fly to Australia and fight him. So that was the thing. I mean, I talked to my wife about it. It didn't sit right in both of our stomachs as far as, the situation at hand, especially me coming off of a TKO loss and going and flying 14 and 15 hours to fight on 12 days notice at a higher weight class of a guy who probably walks around 240. So it just didn't really play in our favor, I feel. And that's kind of why we moved on. And that's where we are right now.
That Anders fight, like, do you think you might have came back too soon for that Deleted, or like what do you kind of take away from those?
I mean, people are saying that. Obviously, people will say what they want to say. But if I didn't feel ready to fight, I wouldn't have fought. Like if I wasn't comfortable getting punched in the face after my surgery, then I wouldn't have fought. Like I'm not stupid. Like I like to think I'm a very intelligent fighter as far as my body and fight IQ and whatnot. But people will say what they want to say. I felt perfectly fine going into the fight. Obviously, it wasn't my best performance. It was an absolutely atrocious performance on my part. I have not watched the fight since. I've only watched it once. I think it was the night of that fight. I think we watched it and just like reviewed like what had happened, what had gone wrong. But that was the only time that I watched it. I haven't watched it and I never will watch it again. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I had a bad performance and I have to just move on from that. So
what do you like take away from your UFC like tenure, like 7 fights in, like, and something like your brother brought up is like kind of that Kevin Holland fight was kind of like just flipped your whole kind of career around where like you were rolling. If that's a win for you, like maybe you go on a different trajectory. Like what do you kind of take away from your UFC tenure then?
I mean that it's a very fast. Obviously, I got signed in what was it, like June of 2020, I believe, and it's already 2023 and I'm already out. So I mean, it goes by fast, obviously. But when I look back on it, am I upset about the way it went? A little bit, yeah, but I can only control what I can control. Throughout that whole kind of, couple of years in the UFC and whatnot, I wasn't really focused in on, I think, winning the fights as much as I should have been, as much as I was prior to being on the regional scene. I recently just started reading the book, and it's called The Secret. I forget who it's by, but it's about like the law of attraction and whatnot. And I think that like the book speaks of like your don't wants and like what you don't want. And I was too focused on that. Like I was too focused on not wanting to lose. I was too focused on not wanting to be that guy that goes in there, loses, and then gets cut from the UFC. And that's kind of what I brought upon myself as far as, as far as like the law of attraction kind of thing happens. Like I focused so much on the negative that the negative just came to me. So now I'm in a positive mindset. Obviously I'm reading the book, so it's obviously very helpful and that stuff. But I think I wasn't solely focused on, being there and winning. I was just focused on not just surviving there. I wasn't really to be real. I wasn't really focused on I was there, but I wasn't like, all right, like I'm here, I'm going to stay, blah, blah, blah. I was too focused on strictly not getting cut. Like I would have a fight left on my contract, and I'm immediately texting my manager like, dude, like, are we staying here? Like, are we not? Like, what's the deal? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like a lot of mental stuff that I went through. So looking back on it, obviously, I wish I could have went another way. But, you know, I am still 30 years old, so I take 2 or 3 wins. I could potentially get called back up to them if they need me, if they want me, or I could go elsewhere. You know, by the end of this year, I could be in the PFL if they, you know, want to take me at 205, or I could be in Bellator and, you know, fighting rank guys there instead.
And then fighting Robert Gidrin, like I know sometimes when a lot of UFC or Bellator guys have to go back to the regional scene, it is pretty tough to get fights because a lot of those top guys that are near the UFC don't want to have to take a loss to a guy that got cut. So like, how hard was it getting a fight then for you?
It was very difficult, to be honest with you. I was actually offered. I was supposed to fight for, I think the organization is called XMMA. They recently just had a card. I was going to be the main event on one of their cards coming up that had recently been canceled and switched or whatever to May. I had about 3 or 4 different opponents. They offered me Rafael Carvalho, who was the Bellator middleweight that was there. They had offered me him. Nothing had responded. He didn't want to cut to 85. So I said, we can fight at 95. And then it's kind of like that fight kind of fell through as well. I had another opponent that we weren't really sure of. And then they offered me Nate Marquardt to fight Nate Marquardt at 85 in like 2 weeks. And I was like, I'm training for this fight and I don't even have an opponent yet. And I'm 2 weeks out. And I'm like, that's not the guy I want to fight. Like, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to just take a fight on 2 weeks notice just to have a fight and just get paid. You know what I mean? Obviously, you know, they were offering me a good amount of money as well for the fight and whatnot. But again, I'm looking at this long term. And again, I'm not here to take short notice fights. So that had happened. And then CFFC offered me like another 3 or 4 opponents. Again, Carvalho, they offered me him. I said yes. He didn't respond. And then Maki Patolo, he responded. He said yes. So he had said yes. And then I was like, all right, sweet. Like I said yes as well. I was waiting for the contract, and then they came back and said he had said no. And I said, what's wrong? Like what kind of happened? And he said he didn't want to fight me like in my hometown in front of my home crowd. It's like it's whatever. That's fine. But I wouldn't agree to the fight and then not take the fight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So then fighting like Robert, like obviously he is 7-7. It's like, how much pressure is on you then? Because like fighting a guy like this, like imagine everyone expects you just kind of run through him, and it seems like you probably have a lot of pressure on you to like not just win, but kind of like show how much dominant and better you are then. Yeah,
of course. I mean, there's always the only pressure that I feel is the pressure that I put on myself, and that pressure is obviously very high. Fighting a guy like Robert, he's very, you know, he's game. He's 7 and his record might not show it, but he's beaten. He beat Josh Fremd, who is a middleweight in the UFC right now. He also fought. Who did he fight in Bellator?
Fought Kyle Crutchmer, who was like DC's guy.
Yeah. And Kyle Crutchmer couldn't get the job. Like couldn't finish him. He beat him by decision. So the guy's very tough and he's very game. And I look forward to getting in on the 16th and beating him and fighting him. But yes, I feel like there is a lot of pressure on me. Obviously, there's no pressure on him. But I wouldn't want it any other way. I like being under the pressure and whatnot. So.
And then fighting, obviously, back near home and like obviously not Philly, but close enough in New Jersey. Like, what's that going to be like having so many friends and family probably being able to get there? Because you were at the Apex for quite a while and they couldn't get to see you fight. Yeah,
it's good. It's exciting to be fighting back in Atlantic City for CFFC. That's actually where I won the belt. So there's a little bit of memories there. So we're planning on having good memories on June 16th. But as far as, you know, fighting in front of my hometown crowd and whatnot, and everybody coming over from Philly, it's going to be great. I'm sure everybody's going to be crazy and wild. I'm sure the place is going to be sold out. And I look forward to putting on a very good performance.
How do you see it playing out then?
If I don't get the fight done within, you know, the first half of, you know, the first round, I expect to finish them within the second half of the second round. I don't really want to go out there and kind of make this a decision. I have to go out there and prove, you know, that there's a reason why I was in the UFC, and I have to go out there and just make sure that he knows it.
You get past Robert, like, what do you think is next for you? Like, do you think one of these promotions could call, or do you still kind of just want a couple more fights to kind of rebuild, get some wins, and then kind of look to get one of these big promotions?
I mean, obviously, you always look to kind of take a step back and rebuild and keep winning. That's going to be my number one goal, is just to win on June 16th. Whatever happens after that, you know what happens. Hopefully I can be signed to Bellator, if not Bellator PFL, or if, not saying that like it's the number one option, but if the UFC called me and needed me, then I would be more than welcome to fill in, just as long as I win on June 16th.
Do you think, like, is there a thought of like maybe I'll just try to reclaim that belt back again in CFFC and then like really kind of cement yourself as like the top guy at middleweight to be signed?
Yeah, I asked to fight the middleweight champ after he had won in April. He wanted to end of April, and I asked to fight him first, and they said that he had hurt his hand, so there was no need there. That fight wasn't going to happen. But I expect, if I don't get signed to any of these other organizations after this fight, then I expect probably to get that belt back. And it would be good just to have it and kind of stay there, have a good reign there for a little bit, maybe finish out, 2023 with CFFC with a couple of belt defenses, and then start 2024, fresh.
Is there like any ill will towards UFC, or like is that still like the doors like not closed for them?
If you talk to my wife, there's ill will, but that's my wife. But for me, I mean, it's business. I know it's business. That's what it is. Obviously, there's these guys that are in the sport now that are solely staying in the UFC based off of their clout and the amount of fans that they bring in. So, that's something to say as far as, if things kind of, again, there's no ill will, my record speaks for it there. I went 2-4-1. So if you go 2-4-1, you're not the best out there. So you have to take a step back and rebuild. But I think that there just needs to be kind of some accountability as well for these other guys that are, losing 3 or 4 fights in a row, and you're like, and they're still there and they're still staying there. You know what I mean? Like Sam Alvey lost however many fights in a row, but again, people like him, so they kept him. I just think there has to be kind of like a even playing field amongst everybody. There should, I understand favorites, and I understand guys like Connor and all the top guys that are making the money and whatnot. But for the unranked guys, I think there needs to be a more even playing field.
Just 2 more things. Obviously, your brother's fighting the week before you. Are you going out to Vancouver with him then?
Yes, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there cornering him. This is the 3rd time that we fought back-to-back weeks. So it'll be good. He's looking good for his fight. I'm excited to kind of go to Vancouver. I've never been to Vancouver ever. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to his fight and his cut to 205, which is going very well right now. And the guy's fast, and the guy's very, very powerful still at a lower weight class, and it's very scary to see.
And just final thing, you kind of mentioned Bellator and PFL. Is Bellator just kind of like that top choice just because there is a middleweight division? Obviously, PFL, you'd have to go to 205, or is that kind of why you prefer Bellator? I mean,
Bellator has not only, the middleweight division, but they have, I feel like, the money is kind of there as well. Mm-hmm. And, not to say that like the 205 division at PFL isn't a good, thing with $1 million tournament and whatnot. And the money that they're offering is very good as well. So as of right now, I would like to stay at middleweight, but if things don't go the way they should and I have to end up fighting at 205, then I will. But, I'm still pretty heavy at 205. I walk around about 225, 230. So I'm still kind of a bigger, 205er as well.
And even like you go to Bellator, like there's still a lot of top guys that I think would be top 5, top 10 guys in the UFC. Like I think Evelyn could have like be a legit like number 1, number 2 guy. And
yeah, there are a lot like now that they came out with the rankings, there's a lot of very good guys in that division as well. And I think I rank up very well against all of them that are there. But people think that because it's not the UFC, that it's not the top guys in the world. But these guys could easily compete with any of the guys that are ranked in the UFC as well. So it's exciting to see, and it's exciting that the attention is not solely focused on one thing now. It's on, you got Bellator, PFL, and UFC. So it's great to see, and it's exciting to see what the future holds.
Just final thing then, what is the goal then? Like fighting June 16th, like what is the goal then for the rest of the year after that?
Win June 16th, and whatever happens. I'm just trying to focus in on winning on June 16th, getting this win, making sure that I'm healthy, and whatever happens after that, I'm more than welcome to jump into Bellator in the middleweight division and make a splash, or, jump into PFL or anybody else that's kind of organization that's kind of offering me money enough that I can make a living off of. So yeah, I'm very excited to see.
Well, Kyle, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
No problem, man. Thank you.
All right, we're joined by UFC bantamweight Miles Jones, who's back in action on June 17th. Miles, how's it going, man?
Going well. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, your last fight, it kind of was quite weird with you obviously losing the coach and then kind of that fight against Vince. Like, was this about a bit longer of a layoff than what you imagined then?
Not really. I mean, after that last one, I had to really make some changes with where I was training and everything. Sorry, let me move inside here. I got the kids on the trampoline making some noise, doing their thing. There we go. So after the last fight, I had to make some changes. Of course, James not being able to coach and people not being able to go to Glory anymore. I had to figure that out, but I found a good place here with Trey, Marathon Martial Arts. So I'm super happy about that.
For you, like, how weird and like hard was that for you? Because like I know you left Fortis for family reasons to go to Kansas City. You get your first fight camp in, and then like on fight week, that's kind of when everything kind of went down with James. Everything at Glory.
Yeah, man, it was tough. It was tough to say the least. I really had to just turn to my faith and trust myself and my capabilities, and that God led me down this path. You know what I mean? So it was all coming down at once, and it seemed like wow, we made, like, I'm not gonna say I never really think that it was a mistake. Like, I knew that what I was doing was best for me and my family, but at the same time, it makes you question decisions and stuff, and then things just start falling into place. Once I found Trey and I started working with Mike Breeden and them at Marathon Martial Arts, it was like, this is exactly what I moved to Kansas City for. It was like I love my team in Dallas and Fortis and stuff, and I've taken so much from that, but I need to move. It had a big thing to do with family and just myself. So once I found that, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I actually came here for.
I know you said, like you mentioned there too, you went to Kansas City for your family, but once kind of they sent a thing of no one training at Glory, like, did you have to think of maybe I might have to leave Kansas City already and like go out of state to go to another gym?
Yeah, I thought about it. I even I drove down to Houston and trained a little bit with those guys there, Yanez and Rafael Stotts and Meshno and all those guys and stuff, and they got a great thing going out there. But I mean, just with I got 3 kids, I got one on the way. I'm a really big family guy, and I didn't want to have to travel and do that for fight camps, and it definitely was crossing my mind. Maybe this is what I'm gonna have to do, but it just seemed like a bunch of chaos and a bunch of questioning and a bunch of relying on my faith, and then everything just started falling into place perfectly.
How big of a relief is it now where that kind of all seems behind you and you got like a good spot now and in Kansas City as well?
It's so nice, just I was so happy about it. Talking to my wife and stuff, she's coming to tears just because she knows like what we've been through and what this path has been, I guess, or just what this journey's been like for us to get here. So it's really nice to be where I'm at now.
And then Hayoni Barcelos, like, how kind of pleased are you with this name? Like, obviously a pretty big name in the division, like a guy that was kind of like a dark horse in the division for a while. Like, obviously had a bit of struggles lately, but still a pretty dangerous guy.
Yeah, I was super happy to see that fight because, like you said, he is a guy who people know his name a little bit more. I feel like it's going to be a step up in tier for me. I wouldn't really say it's a step up in competition. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's super tough, super well-rounded. For a little bit, he's on a 5-fight win streak, I think, in the UFC. And then his only losses are the really tough dudes. But I also have fought guys like John Castaneda, Mario Bautista, Adrian Yanez, who people are seeing now that these guys were like at that top level, So I think I fought guys at the same level, but tier-wise, I think it's a step up. And I'm excited, man. I feel like I get this win, especially if I put them away. That's really going to get things rolling for me down the path I want. I think after that, I'd probably have like one more fight than a top 15 guy. And, then we just get rocking and rolling.
What have you made of his last couple of fights? Like, obviously, Umar knocked him out, which was a surprise. Like, I thought Umar would beat him, but I didn't think it would happen like that. And then, like, kind of mentioned, like, he lost to Victor Henry, Timur Valiev, like, 2 very good bantamweights, like, beat Trevin Jones. Like, I know he's 1-3 in his last 4, but, like, you look at the 3 guys he lost to are pretty good guys.
Yeah, they're all good guys. I think that if I'm being honest, I want the best Hayoni to show up, but I'm not sure if he's a little bit past like his prime days.
Mhm.
I was a little bit surprised with that last knockout. You know, things can happen, but I mean, that was just in January, and it wasn't actually the knee that knocked him out. It was that little check left hook. You know, it didn't take much, and that was kind of a nasty knockout. You know, so it's going to be interesting to see how his chin and everything comes back after that. I mean, when they match you up with someone like me, who's obviously throwing with very bad intentions, I think that that's gonna be in his head a little bit. I think he's gonna want to avoid my power. I think he might try to wrestle me a little more, try to grapple me a little bit more, and I'm feeling great in that department. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see because he has in some of his last fights, like Victor Henry and a couple of these guys, it's been wars, and he's really just kind of broke people. So I'm prepared for that, but I'm not sure after that knockout in January he's gonna want to do that with the guy throwing heat like I am.
And he is 36, like obviously still young, but in a division like bantamweight, which is full of young guys and speed, like how much do you think that might be his age then just coming into it? Like he can't kind of get away of those shots that he used to be able to kind of see and move his head in time.
Yeah, part of me part of me like knows like that's gonna be a factor. You know, especially I'm 29, I'm just hitting my prime, like and getting my grown man strength. I think it's gonna be a factor, but the other part of me is like I'm preparing for the best honey Barcelos that anybody has seen. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm preparing for that, but I got a strong feeling that it might be an early night and a big win for me.
He is a very good striker, and then obviously can mix it in pretty well. So like, how do you think you match up against him?
I think it's a fun fight. I mean, I think just like everybody at bantamweight, we're all well-rounded. You know, I can wrestle, I can grapple, and my boxing is tight and powerful. So I don't think like with Victor Henry took a lot of shots, but Victor Henry's not throwing what I'm throwing. You know what I mean? So I think it'll be just a clean boxing with a little bit of grappling, cage control, just an all-around fight. But I just plan on doing whatever it takes to get the dub. And honestly, people have kind of wondered about my cardio in the past, but I'm really looking forward to going back to old school Chapo, high school wrestling. If I take you into overtime, I'm drowning you. Like that. That's just what's gonna happen. And I think in the third round, people are gonna be surprised to see the gas tank that I'm bringing to this fight because I plan on going in the third and drowning him.
Is there a bit of pressure, like a chip on your shoulder, to like kind of make this a pretty clean win, like especially after the last one where some people thought Vince won and like kind of having that competitive fight? Like, is there a bit of pressure to you just like kind of prove all those doubters, people like that are still kind of doubting you now, and just kind of wipe out high Oni?
I mean, I guess so. You know, maybe it's maybe people are down. Maybe I put some on myself. You know, it's like a healthy chip on my shoulder. Like I'm always looking to prove something to myself and other people. But also it's not really like no, I don't really see that. Like you look at my resume, I'm 13-2, I'm 4-2 in the UFC, and 2 of those wins are knockout of the night bonuses. So it's like I know what I'm capable of. I know the level that I'm at, and so those people I kind of listen to them, but at the same time, you know, I'm fighting for me.
Who are the main guys you're working with? Like, is it Trey? Like you kind of mentioned Trey and Mike. Like, who are kind of the main guys that we're working with for this one?
Yeah, Trey Ogden, Mike Breenan, working with my guy Gomi, a couple other younger guys like coming up who've been with Trey forever. Garrett Armfield just moved here also, so we got a couple guys who are in the UFC, but we also got a couple guys who are just coming up that people don't know about yet that are super tough. So. And then Isaac Dolgarian, he's got to make his pro debut soon, or not his pro debut, his UFC debut. Excuse me, the dude's a stud. So we got plenty of people in there, and a lot of different looks, like I said, from guys that people don't know about yet. So it's been good. I've been really down into the technique, you know.
Corner, I imagine it's probably Trey, Mike, and then maybe your brother, or who is the corner?
Trey, and then my 2 brothers.
Yeah.
My older brother Miguel, he doesn't fight, but it's always like he's been in my corner, and then my younger brother EJ, of course, he's gonna be there.
Oh, how do you kind of see it? You mentioned how do you kind of see this one playing out? You mentioned like could be an early night, could be kind of that one of those drag out fights. Like, how do you kind of see it playing out?
I feel like the first and second round will probably be pretty competitive. I think that he'll be surprised, like my speed and everything in my distance control. And then I think that if he tries to start striking with me and tries to box with me, that the end of the second and beginning of the third, some of that power is gonna start weighing on him, and I see myself getting him out of there in the third, either just drowning him and where he's tired and getting him out of there, or cleanly another clean knockout.
What do you think a win here does for you? Like, he's been a guy that's been in the top 15 before. I know he's kind of outside, and bandweight is obviously so deep. So, like, where do you think a win puts you here?
I think it puts me right into a top 15 fight. You know, I think I'll have to probably win one more with guys that are like top 20, but just some people trying to get to the fight to get them a number, and then after win, then I think I'll be fine for my number.
A bit disappointed just at the Apex again then?
You know, I always love a crowd, but at the same time, it's like you got to pay your dues in the Apex. I think I fought like 5 times in there, including contender or something. But yeah, I'll pay my dues there again, and hopefully gain a crowd after that.
With the bantamweight division, like obviously they have a ton of big fights coming up. Like you obviously just had Cejudo, Sterling, and now Sterling's already booked against O'Malley. For you, kind of coming up, like what's it like to see kind of the division for being how deep it is? Like it's not at a standstill. All these top guys are fighting. Where like you look at lightweight for the longest time, like it seemed like a standstill, and like no one was really giving these unranked guys a chance. But we see these like 10 to 15 guys like fight these unranked guys. Like what's it like for you? Where it is kind of a moving division and there is a lot of opportunity.
I love it, man. You know, it's a lot of opportunity and a lot of eyes on it. Like people are realizing like the bantamweight division is full of killers. Like I don't know if it's full of a bunch of like yoked up guys with little man syndrome who want to take each other heads off. Sometimes it seems like that. I'm probably in that category, but it's so deep, and I think people are seeing that. So every time there's bantamweight fights on the card, people are like, "Oh, it's gonna be some bantamweight bangers," and people are tuning in. So I love that. You know, the more eyes. Like I've known that this division is one of the hardest divisions in MMA for a while. So the more eyes, the better. And yeah, the opportunities they're there, man. They're making fights, and it's making the division move. So it's exciting.
And I think you could get like basically from like 5 to like probably like 25 in the division. You could match them up any different Saturday. I think you get a different result between like basically like I think anyone from like 5 to 25 can kind of win or lose against each other with how kind of deep and how good everyone is.
Yeah. It's just about that night, and it's still a roll of the dice. It's like whoever comes in there and like really performs. You know what I'm saying? And so that keeps me up at night a little bit, but it also keeps me just going and motivated to just be so dialed in and so strict with my techniques and everything. So yeah, it's a wild time to be a UFC bantamweight.
And just final thing, like what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like fighting middle of June, like what is kind of the goal then for you?
If I get one more in this year and then begin the next year be fighting for my number, that'd be awesome.
Well, Miles, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're joined by UFC lightweight Nikolas Motta, who's back in action on June 17th. Nikolas, how's it going, man?
Good, everything all right. Ready to go.
Was this a bit longer of a layoff than what you imagined? Like, I know you obviously had that fight scheduled in April, and then I know it was obviously that cut. Like, was this longer than what you thought it would be to get rescheduled after that fight in April?
No, it didn't take so long. I September last year. Then my plan was to fight again in December, January. So usually I would go to Brazil and visit my family, like spend time with my family around Christmas. I always use it to spend Christmas with family, but no, I want to keep this. I'm focused right now, and I want to keep this momentum. And I'm going to stay here in America and fight again this in December. But I didn't got a fight, and I keep asking for a fight, asking. Then end up they give me that fight in April in Miami in the 287, and it was a dream coming true because I always dreamed one day be fighting on a pay-per-view card, and for the first time I would be fighting at the stadiums because always I fought on the small cage in the small area because I fought on the Ultimate Fighter in 2015. I fought on Contender, and my debut was at the Apex. So it's a dream to fight with a crown too, and that didn't happen. And I had that fight. I had to pull out. I didn't want to pull out, but my coach made me do it. Then I was already stressing out and like, man, I want to fight and fuck, but they gave me this fight now, and it's a good fight. If I wasn't the guy fighting, I wouldn't lose that fight. I wouldn't never lose the opportunity to watch that fight because that fight is a banger. We both we like two dogs.
With Manuel, like how familiar were you with him when you got the offer to fight him?
how familiar was, like sometimes I try to see possible guys that I could fight, and I was familiar. I was a little bit familiar with him already. I saw that he could be a good match for me, and I already thought about that fight. That would be a good match. Then when the UFC offered me the fight, I was like, let's go.
And then I know you're obviously training at Factory X, or no, are you at Extreme now, or what?
Max Stream, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you went there. Like, what was the move to go out there and train in Vegas?
Yeah, I've been extreme for around a year or more than a year,
Hmm.
and I always dreamed about living in Las Vegas one day, and now I'm living in Vegas, and Extreme was the best place for me right now. I love Extreme. I love the coaches and the training partners, and I love that gym, and I think was the best choice I made.
And then, like with Extreme, obviously a ton of bodies, like the UFC PIs right there. Like, how beneficial has that been for you? Just being able to
Uh,
like work with your diet and like just the PI being so close.
yeah, that's another big reason that I moved to Vegas because the PI makes my life so much easier. I'm not good at cooking. Even I left home when I was 18. I've been on the road on this journey, trying to make to the top of the sport, to be in UFC, and since I was 18, but I still don't know how to cook too good. So the PI, they have healthy meals, they have a nutrition team, and they give everything to us. Like they gave us food, supplements. We also have a very good strength and conditioning program. I do with Australian guy Gavin. He's very good, and also they have very good physical therapy and like recovery area. I like to do like cold plunge, like ice bath. Then it's amazing for me here, and always I've been in the best shape of my life always because the PI makes so much easier for me.
How disappointing is it that this event is just at the Apex, especially after your last one was supposed to be in front of fans?
I don't think before I used to think like that, but I don't think that is disappoint anymore because eh, eh, I'm not gonna lie because when my coach told me to pull out the fight, I was like, bro, but like that's my dream to be fighting on a pay-per-view card with the
Mhm.
crown, and so many eyes are gonna be on me because it's gonna be a pay-per-view card. One of the That was like maybe one of the biggest cards of the year, but then my coach said, bro, you're still young, you're gonna have another opportunities to be on cards like that. And also other coach told me like, bro, UFC doesn't care where you fight, they care about if you win or you lose the fight. And he said it's okay if we go to a fight and we lose because the guy was better than I, but it's not okay to go to a fight already with a disadvantage. We don't want to make that mistake. And I'm like, okay, all right. And I like it now. My UFC debut, when I was doing my camp in Brazil, and I came to do my UFC debut, and it was straight on the main card. I think, like my friends, like I have a friend that we did tough together, Bruno Bulldog. He told me, bro, the debut it's hard, bro. I'm like, no, 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 that's not gonna happen with me. Then I'm not gonna feel nervous on my debut. But then was in the main card, and when I listen, that song from the main card, I forgot exactly the name of the song, but when that song starts singing, I kind of like have some tears on me because I was like, man, oh, that's crazy. I finally made it to UFC, and it's my first UFC fight straight in the main card. I'm so happy, but sometimes those emotions they can work for on a good way, but at the same time, sometimes too much emotions they can work against you. Especially the guy I was fighting like maybe the biggest gamer in the whole UFC because he's the guy who has the highest numbers of fights in UFC, Jim Miller, and the highest number of wins in the lightweight division. That always been the hardest division in UFC. and I think my emotions got to me a little bit. Plus, I was hiding like a bad injury too in the fight, and he was hitting me right there, and I learned a lot from that fight. And now I have a different way to think about that. I think for me, fighting in Vegas is great because I live in Vegas. I don't have to travel, and I have the PI too. Like the day of the fight, I went to the PI and got my food there, like clean food, and it was nice. I didn't want to sleep at the hotel. I slept in my own bed, so I think it's good to fight in Vegas. I have. At first, I was like, "Fuck, maybe that fight might debut because it was at the Apex that wasn't too good." But now I see that I was wrong. I think Vegas is good for me.
And with Manuel, like he's obviously a banger, likes to stay out of strikes. Like, how do you kind of see this one playing out?
That one playing out, it's easy to know, like, because when you look both of us records, I think all his fights or end in the first round. I think only one of his fights was a decision. So I know that he comes to kill. And also, if you look my record too, I didn't even. I knew that I had a lot of knockouts, but I remember when I won my first UFC fight, they came at me and they said, "Oh, that's now you have 7 knockouts in the first round," and I'm like, "Really? Oh, I didn't know that. That's so cool." And I think if I was a matchmaker, that would that fight is like a very good fight. The matchmaker know what he's doing because it's like putting two pit bulls to fight.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of think like this could easily be like a fight of the night or a performance bonus if one of you guys get knocked out early.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that's another dream to get a performance of the night. And in the last fight, I was asking for. I'm not gonna ask for anymore and let them decide. And I think they don't like when people keep asking for bonuses.
Let's say you do go out there and knock out Manuel. Like, where do you think that puts you in the division? Like, you'd be 2-1, and like obviously your one loss was to Jim Miller, who's like one of the best in this division. Like, just outside the top 15. Like, where do you think a win puts you?
I think a win puts me in a better place, and I'm gonna be a little bit more like, okay, I'm gonna be able to breathe a little bit because like at this point now, when you're just starting UFC, you gotta be very careful because it's so easy to get cut.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of names in my mind to ask for after this fight.
Uh,
I want a rematch with Jim Miller, and if I I I, I want to ask to have a rematch with him at the Apex. And now the things, I think the things would be different now I have more experience now, and I have other names too that I want to fight, and I'm gonna do my best to win this fight. I want to win and I have to win.
is that Ignacio fight one you'd like back? Just because obviously you were so close to getting to the fight, and then you had to pull out.
Yes, yeah. Always, if I have to pull out a fight, I feel the same way. Just like how I had my UFC debut was supposed to be against Tamir Hadzovic, and I had to pull out because of an injury, and I won that fight again too.
And just final thing, like, what is kind of the goal then for you this year?
The goal, I think, the goal for me, that what I've been saying for a long time, I want to fight more. I think I lost a lot of time that I could be fighting, and I think I need to fight more. And one day I was talking with a friend that Rafael dos Anjos, he fought so much, right? He one of the guys that fought the most in UFC, and he was telling me that, bro, you need to fight more. And I think he's right. And I can't believe that I just turned 30.
Mhm.
I started like I had my pro debut when I was 19 years old, and I think now it's time to make a little bit of money, right? I
Uh,
need to start fighting more and build my name and and build my future, and now I have this experience, so many years that I've been putting and sacrificing for that, and I hope now is the time.
Well, Nicholas, that's all I have for you. Thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you.